Hello, everybody. Welcome to Take Control of Your Career. If you are a woman looking to level up in your career, this show is for you. Today, we are joined by Monica Cole, EVP and Head of Agribusiness, Food, and Hospitality for Middle Market Banking at Wells Fargo, and she's also a member of the Management Committee at Wells Fargo. Monica and I sit on the board at C200 together, an organization focused on advancing women in business, which is how we know each other, and we're very fortunate to have her here with us today. One of the other things that Monica wanted to make sure to share is that she has led the Women's Growth Committee at Wells Fargo, focused on helping with lending to women-owned businesses and bringing more financial solutions to that space. And she is the executive sponsor for the Veterans Team Member Network. So thank you so much for joining us, Monica. We're so pleased to have you here.
Lauren, thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to this.
Great. Well, why don't we just go ahead and get to know you first? So tell us about yourself and your career journey.
Well, I'll tell you, my career journey has felt like one where I've just looked at going places and embracing change. So I'll give you an example. I actually started out as an engineer and just decided banking sounded very interesting. So I switched literally careers going into something I was very unfamiliar with, from engineering to banking. At the time, I also lived in the South, and I thought, I'll just go to Minneapolis. That sounds like fun. And when I went to Minneapolis, basically not knowing what I was getting myself in, starting a different career, started at the bank. I've been here 25 years with Wells Fargo. I've had so many different careers, Lauren, within this company, and it's been spectacular. One of the things that I think about in my journey is I always ask myself, what can I learn from this next opportunity, and never fear where it takes me? So I moved from Minneapolis to Atlanta to join structured finance, which is basically cash flow lending. I left the structured finance group and started to run our asset-based lending group. I didn't know anything about asset-based lending, but I thought, how hard could it be, until I actually got in it and lost some money. And then I realized this is really difficult.
Better figure out what you're doing quickly.
Exactly, but it was such a great experience, and I loved every moment of it. So I went from there to actually running half the country and Canada for our asset-based lending group. I had a great opportunity with an executive sponsor to talk about my next steps in my career. And I'll tell you, I was never one of those people who thought about, what are you going to do 3 years from now or 5 years from now? I always thought about, where can I add the most value? How can I broaden my skill set? And how can I constantly learn and grow? And so interestingly enough, I came to St. Louis sight unseen, which is a great city to be in, took a job running the Midwest region, and then moved to Chicago, where I ran the Northeast in our middle market world. And then back to this position I have now as head of agribusiness, food, and hospitality. I remember talking to the leader of the business and thinking to myself, wow, I'm just not an expert in those areas. And what we talked about was really vision and strategy. And I was excited about the opportunity to do something that I'd never done, to be out on farms with our customers, watching how we bring food, right, to the world, everywhere from beer distributions to wine and spirits, and to the gaming world, which is now a part of my world. So I've got a huge franchise and specialty business. I'm doing all the things, Lauren, that your parents tell you to stay away from when you're young. I lead those businesses now.
Wow. One of the things that I love about your career journey is that you have just gone in not knowing what you're doing in some of these examples, but willing to learn and having a passion for learning. How have you, in those situations, found the guts and the power within yourself and the confidence to speak up in those circles where maybe people around the table know more than you, and you're going in and leading an organization doing that? I think people that I've talked to, women especially, struggle with that kind of a situation, and hearing your approach to this would be really powerful for them.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I just have always had the mentality of being comfortable with what I knew and being very willing to ask from others and learn. And so it was never scary for me to try something different, right? I always thought about, I know that if it can be done, I can do it if I can just get someone to have the patience to work with me. And I think one of the big keys to delivering on that, Lauren, is building relationships with people. So what I've learned in my career is what people respect is hard work, the willingness to take that extra effort, and working together inclusively. And when you can do that, you can go into any position. I always tell young talent, we're not trying to build a rocket here. Everything can be learned. And so it really is about your hunger and your passion to learn it, to work together as a team, and then to use those transferable skill sets that we all learn through our careers. So it has always been fun to challenge myself to do things that I never thought I could do.
I love that. So Monica, you have obviously had a tremendously successful career. So what would you say has been the key to your success as you've progressed up the ladder in a large and extremely complex organization?
Well, there certainly is more than one key to that success. I will say first and foremost, and I think all of us know this, is we have to be technically competent, right, when you start off in your career. And so I was very focused on working with senior people, truly understanding the foundation that I would need to take throughout my career and be successful in it. And once I was able to do that, then it was about executing, right? Now you're out on your own as an individual contributor. You're no longer holding the bags of someone else. So you have to execute and deliver. And then, Lauren, the last thing I'll say about what it takes, at least what I believe it takes to be successful, is building those relationships, both horizontally and vertically, and even outside of the organization that you're in. So what I really paid attention to was making sure that the people I worked with and around knew who I was as an individual, that I would deliver, and that I was consistent. And we faced issues together. We celebrated together. I didn't run from anything. I met every deadline they had. And what that does is it allows people who are looking to advance you in your career to understand exactly what they're getting in you. There is no surprise. And that's important, I think, the higher up the ladder you go.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we tell women a lot of times, that as they're looking to progress in their career, how are you demonstrating the skills and abilities and leadership qualities of the next level expected of you? So people aren't necessarily feeling like they're taking a risk by promoting you to that next level, especially if someone is putting their name on the line by suggesting, hey, Monica should take this job.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And one of the things that I always do, even to this day, is when I'm in a meeting with a senior person, I always think about, as they are responding to questions, how would I respond to that question, right? What is the way I would approach that? How would I strategically think about that? And then in one-on-ones, or whether it's just casual conversation, I tend to talk about those examples with the senior person. You know, hey, I was in this meeting with you and so asked this. Here's how I was thinking about it. Tell me how you got to your thought process. And when you're having those types of conversations day in and day out, not only are you developing strategically, but those that are at a higher level at you are starting to see you in that next chair.
Yeah, I love that. And that's a great way to develop relationships with people that can eventually become sponsors for you. One of the things that I also suggest people do is ask those top people for any feedback that they have for you. And then as you progress with moving forward with some of the advice and feedback that they've given you, that you're keeping them up to date so you can demonstrate to them, hey, I heard you, and here's what I'm doing to move forward with some of your suggestions on how I can get to the next level as well.
Oh, isn't that just so true? And we know that feedback is a gift, but so many people are afraid not only to get it, but to give it. And it's got to be feedback that has meat to it, right? It can't be, oh, you did a good job. It has to really be specific, as close to in the moment as possible. So right after a meeting or a presentation, and it has to be both encouraging as well as constructive in the feedback. And I agree with you. One of the, there's a big difference between mentors and sponsors, right? A mentor is someone that really is there to for you to bounce ideas off of and sort of help you think initially about your career. A sponsor is someone that is going to spend that political capital in the room with the door closed to go to bat for you. And the only way you can help build that type of relationship, so someone is willing to be your sponsor, is to have that feedback, is to check in with that person, is to talk about the things you're doing and how you've delivered for the organization.
Absolutely. Well, I can tell based on just the kind of conversation we're having right here that you have been a mentor and a sponsor to lots of people, I'm sure, as well. So tell us about your leadership style. Even just listening to you, I get this incredible sense of thoughtfulness and authenticity from you.
I will tell you, I was thinking about this earlier today as I've been leading now my new team, an expanded team. And it's amazing. So for me, my leadership style really started at a very young age. And I think about probably the two most important people that shaped who I am today as a leader. First and foremost, my grandmother. And in hindsight, Lauren, I think about it, she really was the first CEO I ever met. She ran our household that didn't have much. She ran it efficiently and effectively. I had a job. I had accountability. She was very clear about what her expectations were. She rewarded me when I met those expectations, and she gave me constructive criticism when I didn't. You never had to read between the lines with her. And so I have so much of that in how I lead. My high school basketball coach, he and I talk almost constantly, even now. But the things that he taught me about strategy, assessing skill, bringing together the right talent to get the most out of a group of people and drive forward, to understand when to leave your ego at the door for the betterment of the team. These are all things that I take into how I lead in this company. And for me, transparency is the key to it. And it is so much fun when you can bring people together that are united around one goal, that are willing to take the lead at times and to take a step back, myself included. That is, to me, what fun leadership is about. And I love doing it every single day.
Awesome. Well, that is, and sports are such a great place for all of us to learn how we can implement some of these leadership practices early on in our lives as well. So let's go a little bit of a different direction here. Monica, I would be remiss at this point right now with where we are in our country right now to not ask you about your career journey in the context of being a woman of color in a predominantly white male industry, banking. So tell us how that has affected your career, your leadership style, and how you approach business in general.
Oh, I would love to tell you that it's never been an issue, and that would simply just not be true. But I will say this. People love working with individuals that are giving it everything they have and are trying to get better and better every day. And it doesn't matter the skin you're in when you can build those relationships to see that. But it is very true. I remember my first big management position where a gentleman in the organization, not even in the city or the group that I was in, basically called someone close to me that said, oh, well, we know that she got that position simply because she was a Black woman. And so I've had other people in our organization that will ask me, how do you deal with the fact that people think you get these roles because you are a Black woman? And what I tell them, Lauren, time and time again, is I cannot allow the perception of someone else to dictate what I know I can accomplish in my career. And if they give me have a chance, they're going to understand exactly why I'm in this role. And it has nothing to do with the fact that I'm Black. It has nothing to do with the fact that I'm a woman. And so I really focus on the belief in myself that I know I can deliver. I've done it. And I can't really change someone who thinks differently. I can only execute. And if they want to come along with me, it's going to be a fun ride.
I love your mentality about not allowing other people's perceptions to dictate what's going on in your head, because you can only control what you control. And that's where you need to focus. Otherwise, you're giving your power away.
That's exactly right. And when you are grounded in who you are, the one thing that I always think about every day, we talk about taking that moment of just meditation and getting prepared for the day. And the one thing I think about is staying grounded in what I truly believe in, and that's my faith. That gives me the power that allows me to be who I really am and show up as my whole self inside of these walls. And that has proved just very fruitful for me. And I'm very comfortable in the skin that I'm in.
Yeah, and that also goes to the importance of having a deeper purpose in your work. So it's not just about the next job or, where do you want to get, from your long-term career path, but what's driving you at a deeper level. So I love hearing about that side of you as well, which also goes back to something that I love about you, which is that you believe in paying it forward. So how are you paving the way for diverse women who come after you?
Oh, Lauren, I will tell you, my assistant tells me every day, will you please stop telling people you have 15 minutes? You don't have 15 minutes. But I listen, I so deeply believe that none of us really got here on our own. Someone helped us along the way, no matter how small or how big that help was. And for me, in particular, inside of our organization, particularly Black women, but men and women of any race and ethnicity, if they reach out and say, can I get 15 minutes? I'll work into the wee hours of the night to give them that time, because I truly understand what it was like for me to compete and succeed in this business. And if there is something that I can do to help the next woman, to help in particular the next woman of color, have an easier road and a straighter path than what I had, I think that's my responsibility. And I think that's how we not only shape cultures inside of an organization, right? When you're trying to win together, that you have a vested interest in not only making yourself better, but the person that's coming behind you better. And Lauren, at the end of the day, what we're all really trying to do is achieve some level of economic success, however we define it. And I can be great, but when I walk outside of that door and go hopefully into retirement, if the people coming behind me aren't even better, then I do think we failed in some perspective. And I never want to be a part of that failure. I want to be a part of driving success for generations. I want that to be my legacy. It has happened to me from men and women of all races to help me be the best person I can be. And so I think I just have a natural responsibility to do it.
Well, you're a special person to have that perspective and to be so giving of yourself and your time. One of the things that I actually talk about sometimes with groups of individuals is, kind of like you're saying, hey, anyone who wants to reach out to me, I will follow up with you and we can connect. And it's always amazing that out of a group of several hundred people, I might get one or two invitations. And, this is a topic where, I'm speaking on careers, for example. So I have the ability to be helpful to you in this process, especially for individuals in job search. So taking that, putting the offer out there is important, but as a message to some of the people watching and listening to this, I think it's just as important to be willing to put yourself out there, to ask, to make the ask of people in power, people of influence. And the answer might be no, but it's definitely going to be no if you don't ask. And think of the incredible value that you can get out of having a relationship or getting some advice from someone who's been there, done that. And then that's how you can start building some of those sponsorship relationships as well. So if you have ambitions to continue pushing through and forward in your career, I highly suggest finding strategic ways to connect with senior people and be authentically you, but find ways to ask advice, questions, feedback, so that they can put their thumbprints on your career as well.
I think that's so true, Lauren. And courage is a beautiful thing inside of corporate America. And I often remember a chief risk officer of me saying, well, what's the worst thing that can happen? And to your point, the worst thing is the person saying no. You still live, you still go on, right? And you work for the next opportunity. But even in that simple approach, you are building more and more courage. And it takes courage to move up to the next ladder. So the sooner you can start building it, the sooner you can start getting over the butterflies to ask someone who's in a higher chair for 10 minutes of their time, the easier it's going to become. And look, here's the reality. Most of us love what we do, and we want to share that wisdom. And so we will carve out 10 or 15 minutes. We're not going to have an hour. We're also so very busy, but 10 or 15 minutes that I know I can help you be better, which in turn helps my organization be better, I'll give that all day.
Absolutely. So well said. Okay, so this is a little bit of a fun question. So a lot of times we talk about how important it is to have something that you're passionate about outside of work. So I know that you recently published a book that you wrote while in quarantine. So how did that come about?
Oh, geez, I will tell you, it's such an alter ego of who I am, Lauren. And most of my friends literally thought I was losing my mind when I told them I was doing this. But I battle insomnia quite a bit. And before COVID, it was easy to use that time between 1 and 3 or 4 in the morning to work because I had spent so much time traveling on airplanes. So that was my catch-up time. But when COVID happened, I found myself in this space of stress and anxiety, and I didn't want to work in that realm. And so I started to think, well, we're in incredibly unusual and unique times. And so I want to think about doing something totally different. And my mother and sister and I often would talk about what we were doing in our careers as we were traveling and meeting with clients. And since we were staying at home, those conversations started to shrink. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to write something that will be just fun for my mother and sister to read. And we can talk about it. I never envisioned that it would become not only one book, but 3 books, these 3 short novels around a young woman who goes really through her career journey from college to selling a huge corporations for millions of dollars. But I will tell you this, Lauren, the thing that I learned in writing those books are really applicable to corporate America today. And the first one is never stop challenging yourself to develop new talents and skills. And that was so important to me as someone who's not a huge fan of English and the written language. As an engineer, I think in numbers. So to be able to do this was really stretching a skill set that I was very uncomfortable in. The second thing that I learned in this process was having people around you to encourage you and motivate you. My mother and sister would read pages and send me emails and say, well, what happens next? It's like, oh my God, I've got to finish this. And then the final thing I learned, which is also very applicable in my career, is no matter what the outcome of you chasing an opportunity, the experience inside of it creates success in and of itself. And so whether that book just stays in a small group of people who have indulged in it, or some movie star picks it up and wants to make a film script of it, it is successful because I accomplished it when I never thought I could.
I love how you look at that so holistically. What are the takeaways that you are applying, if any, into your day job with that?
So it's funny. I think about that just concept of encouragement, right? As we are now embarked in a world where people are developing different skill sets to communicate with customers because we're not face to face anymore. where we are trying to figure out how to do things efficiently and effectively through technology. So I think about encouraging my team, setting the bar a little higher, making them think about doing things in different ways that they've never tried before and being as effective. And it's really what I learned in writing that book. And I take those, or writing those books, and I take that learning into the workplace daily now.
So fun, and congratulations on that success. And I'm so impressed with how you used that creative muscle to do something completely new and challenge yourself. And now who knows what's next? So I can't wait to see what's next for you, Monica. You're an inspiration and an amazing guest here, providing so much insightful, thoughtful advice here. So thank you so much for joining us, and look forward to staying in touch soon.
Thank you, Lauren. It's been a pleasure.